put that in there. But, and community, actually I could put Miroslav Volf on the side of community, I suppose. David Hume is really the philosopher that I put over there, because Hume is famous for saying that you can learn logic, you can learn to be a critical thinker and so on, but your passions that you grew up believing are your primary goals in life, from your peers, from your family, from your culture. Reason is the slave of the passions, says David Hume. And so literally, I can do all this reasoning, but my basic value statements that are my premises are what I'm going to be arguing for.
Right. Why would you argue for anything?
And if I believe in this value and you believe in that anti-value, my reasoning process isn't going to persuade you.
Right.
Which is, of course, this catastrophe that occurs through the freedom that we have in the United States, because
It defines conflict.
you're a heretic by imperative. You have to be, because as an American growing up, you have the right to choose your own beliefs for yourself. And while you're probably going to believe in the basics that you got as a kid, and some change will take place, you're still going to be grounded emotionally in those things.
But it's that common understanding that we need to work on. Like, one of my biggest beefs right now is that there's so much emphasis placed on STEM and not enough emphasis placed on humanity. Like philosophy, if you tell somebody you're a philosophy major, you can kind of laugh at it, right? If you tell somebody you're going to school for art.
Oh, thank you for the videos, by the way.
Yeah. Or the
That never ended,
you're
by the way.
treated in the same way, But why is that? The humanities need more focus. The thing about a heretic is you're only a heretic in the eyes of somebody else. But that somebody else doesn't realize that when they call you a heretic, that heretic thinks you're a heretic.
Yeah, just in his defense, Peter Berger is not calling everybody a heretic to be mean.
No, I get what he's saying.
He's pointing out that's the nature of our culture.
It is the nature of it.
To
But
promote
that's
heresy.
When we can't come to the table in that sense because we obviously view values, like you said, at different levels. So if I view that this is the highest value and you view that this is the highest value and you're a heretic to me and I'm a heretic to you, how do we come to the same table? And the only way we can do that is in understanding those other cultures, understanding those other views, and that's the humanities. STEM is not going to do that for us. So if we want to solve our world problems, we need to
You've heard STEAM.
Yes, yeah.
Where you get this science,
I can't remember.
technology, engineering, and
The arts and
I forget what the M stands
I
for.
can't remember what M is either. Math, maybe.
Math, probably. But STEAM puts in an A for arts,
Right.
so that basically that's everything.
And I think that's the direction we need to go, but we need to balance it.
Yeah,
And
we
that's
need
the
to-
problem.
We need to stress everything in your education.
Yeah, and which is the most important thing, but it's which is the
Everything
most
is
important thing
most
at the time.
important. STEAM. So, here's our dilemma then as Americans. If we look at our cultural history from the point of view of, say, a history of philosophy, even including Eastern and Western,
Right.
Northern and Southern,
Mm-hmm.
Greek and David Hume, you put all this together, America has these opportunities for every young person growing up, especially if you go to college, and as a result, from birth, you could see the arc, as I've suggested it with crappy artistry here.
It works.
I enjoyed it when I did it. Theoretically, you would be heading across certainty, and in fact, you could head all the way over here without interruption to be a fundamentalist, which I know fundamentalism is often referred to, say, in the terms of the Fundamentalism Project, which is a huge set of tomes about fundamentalism, where Martin Marty basically predicts back at the collapse of the Soviet Union that the next enemies that the United States would face would be fundamentalists.
Was he right?
Well, of course, yeah. Not only foreign, but also domestic, right? But it also means the fundamentals, that you have a sense of the fundamentals, and as a set of beliefs. That's the happiest corner in my square. Those are the folks that literally are the most peaceful in mind,
Right.
because they know
Yeah.
what's certain, and they're focused on the community. So they're in the best of all possible human worlds, really,
For self, for an individual.
and even for a community. Of course, the trouble is we have so many different communities, and all the communities don't agree. I mean, you can't really take people
Right.
out of one community and put them in another and discover that there's no conflict.
Well, that's what I'm saying is life is great if you're a fundamentalist in a fundamentalist society that is along your fundamentals. But if you're not along those fundamentals, life's not so great. So it's not necessarily great for the community. It's good for the person who thinks that they're resolved and thinks that they have the answers to everything, and therefore they're in peace because they're living.
They
their
haven't
best
had a
life.
philosophy course yet.
Yeah, but anybody
So
else
you
who
can be happy
disagrees is not living a great
believing-
life. They're part of the
Yeah,
community.
yeah. So fundamentalism is there. The typical American, though, hits high school, and high school promotes science.
Right.
And I don't know if you've had the experience, but science teaches that culture has evolved. That's what history is. Really a study of the evolution of human culture and thought. And what you discover is that the fundamental certitude of your beliefs are based on human developments that are largely fictional in nature. Especially once you get to the point where you realize that, hey, value statements are neither true nor false.
Right.
We don't have a consensus on it. So as a result, it's your opinion. You like chocolate, I like vanilla, as Sam Harris says. Right? So American school education, which I think is why an awful lot of communities prefer to send their children to a private school that's not primarily run by the government in some way, promoting a particular set of beliefs that are contrary to the fundamentals of that community. But instead you have children pulled down into what I've called wisdom, and that's because it's in the center. You're pulled down to science, which is hypotheses. Funeral by funeral, science progresses.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you have uncertitude as the driver here. Worst case for me is this corner here,
Right.
because this is the individual that is totally focused on the self, but totally uncertain about what should I do.
That's where apathy lives.
I mean, there's really a lot of teenage angst and entertainment that promotes that kind of angst. I mean, I'm thinking of Billie Eilish, what was I made for? The Barbie movie, what was I made for? I realized that I was just something you paid for. I'm a doll. What was I made for? I don't know. Boy, that puts you down in this corner, depression and so on. What helps is community. Don't be alone. and not believing that you have any goals in life, and that no one loves you, and et cetera, et cetera. Join groups, even though, thank you, Bowling Alone and The Great Interruption, we don't have that close-knit set of groups that we used to have. Instead, how do you join with your community? College is supposed to be a great time for that, but our campus is a perfect example of how it doesn't work for most people, because they're so busy with their communities. Or they're so busy not with their communities, but with their job, with their obligations. Got to make money. You're not the typical high school graduate that's still essentially being taken care of by parents, so that they can concentrate on this very important part of your life, where you're going through the turmoil of having this kind of education that really pulls you down towards uncertainty. But it should also redeem itself by pulling you towards a sense of community. And because of, oh my goodness, the COVID, everything was closed. You went to Zoom. Notice in our class today we have most of the people attending via Zoom, so that they can't just engage in this discussion. So we need ways of pulling people towards community. And the last corner that I have on here is neo-pragmatism. Liberal, the neo-pragmatists are the pragmatists that are updated, basically, neo. But most of us are here. Most of us are somehow searching for wisdom by negotiating with all of these cultural influences. We have certitude from many of our cultural institutions. We have uncertainty from our educational system, at the highest levels especially. Your focus is on the self. Thank you, Descartes, and others that have grown this sense of individualism. We, the people, meaning me. I want what I want. So when we get together and we negotiate, I want my property. I want my freedom. I want my gun. I want my apple pie. I want my spouse. I want her to be property. No, says she. No such thing as property when it comes to people, etc. You get the idea. We're in a not quite melting pot. It's more like a stew. We have peas and carrots. We have potatoes. We have some meat, and we have some gravy. And you mix it all together, and everybody ends up feeling like a heretic, because we all end up being influenced by all these different opportunities in different ways. So when we go back to C.S. Lewis, Clive, I can't remember what the S stands for. Lewis. Clive. Jack. We'll just call him Jack. Jack, you're a good Jack, says Joy when she first meets him. Why did that even... I just repeated that whole thing, but notice I at least got it out of the paragraph.
Yeah, I was going to say it's out of the paragraph.
So fundamentalism, happiest people live in communities that are fundamentalists. Be careful, suicide, neo-pragmatism, postmodern American philosophy. Pragmatism is a philosophy that starts in like the 1850s or so.
Right, it led
and
to us.
when people write histories, They don't want to say that the entire era is the axial age. They don't want to say the entire era is the Australopithecine.
Right,
You
so on
know,
and so forth.
yeah, I mean, you want to narrow it down and say the Clinton era, or the Obama era, or the Trump era, which
Right.
is, and wisdom. The goal of studying philosophy and beginning this quest is to reach whatever we mean by wisdom.